All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. This is my boomstick!
Oh my god. My name is Harvey Bodega, and welcome to the review of Forgive Me Father, the first-person boomer shooter developed by Byte Barrel. Now, Byte Barrel is a small Polish development company comprised of a few industry veterans that only formed in 2017. Since their formation, they released Forgive Me Father into early access in October of 2021, the full release in April of 2022, and now is almost done with a Mythbusters game. I don't know. Anyway, as with most boomer shooters, Forgive Me Father proudly pulls from games like Doom, Quake, Blood, etc., with things like the face indicating health, colored keys and doors, stat counters, giblets, pop culture references, and stylistically choppy animations to bring you back to an era of groundbreaking FPSs and Bill Clinton's presidency.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it. And didn't inhale.
To distinguish itself from the games to which it's paying homage, Forgive Me Father takes inspiration from the legendary science and horror fiction works of H.P. Lovecraft. So basically what this means is that we can expect fish people, cultists, and madness. Does Big Daddy Cthulhu make an appearance? You'll have to see. A synopsis of the story goes like this. Your character, who is either a preacher or a journalist, is asked by their cousin Lewis to meet them in the town of Pestisville, which is soon discovered to be under siege by cosmic horrors and whatnot. That's it, get shootin'. With the background laid out, let's start with the presentation. Forgive Me Father's art style is awesome. This gritty, dark, illustrated look sets the tone, and while reminding me a lot of Darkest Dungeon, is fairly unique for a shooter. Stylized like a graphic novel, the enemies and characters appear as two-dimensional sprites in the 3D world, like Paradise Killer. All the enemies are always facing you, which works. I mean, what did you expect in a game like this, a stealth system? The enemies, although it's hard to get a good look at them because of the fast-paced combat, are very detailed and well-styled, with some suitably grotesque design. Each of the many enemy types adds variety to the gameplay, although there are a few just for flavor. Like we have the Wretch, and the Naked Wretch. There is a good variety in environments too, like we have a castle, graveyard, swamp, bottom of the sea, the mines of Moria, the endless and eternal void. It's all here. It's all a nice change in scenery that you still end up painting red with your enemies. Overall, this is an especially clever art style to save development time. There's no need to create the side or back views of models, the graphic novel-styled cutscenes have minimal animations, and choppy player and enemy actions emulates the low frame rates of early shooters, but it's hard to tell if these are shortcuts or stylistic choices because the art direction is very good. The visual fidelity and quality, however, is a mixed bag. Environments don't have to be incredibly detailed for games like this, but some of the 3D rendered textures or fog effects seem really bad in comparison to the illustrated art. Post-processing effects were my biggest frustration though. There's a grain filter, but you also have a madness meter, which makes the screen increasingly dark and grayscale as it fills. Then, some of the lighting has inexplicable lens flares and horrible bloom. It's already a really dark game, so in moments where all of this adds up, you can barely see. I mean, compare these two, the base settings. All that shit turned off, and the brightness turned up a bit. That's what I would advise, I mean at least for the late game, but I wish the standard settings were just less intense. A little bit of bloom is fine, but I don't need it to look like I'm having a migraine. Okay, let's jump to sound, and I have to say this is a pretty good sounding game. I'll just stop for a moment so we can take a quick listen. Weapons are powerful and satisfying, and most enemy types have well-done audio cues which really help you stay mentally organized in chaotic fights. As for music and ambient sounds, they're solid and serviceable, as these aspects really don't have to be groundbreaking or unique to elevate the gameplay. Like the ambient environmental sounds set a good stage, and when the action picks up, the music kicks in. It's mostly a metal soundtrack, which, while not unique, really does elevate the action even higher. Now as sound goes, we're just left with the voice acting, which comes with a little story. My copy of Forgive Me Father, my copy, like I'm renting it at Blockbuster or something, but my Forgive Me Father has a bug where the lines spoken by characters in-game would be really soft and sound poorly mixed. I couldn't find a way to fix it, and I couldn't really find anybody who had the same issue that I could speak with. Then I had to circle back to record this addendum because once I put my audio clips into the video editor, I was able to hear their voice lines perfectly fine.
I'll use it for self-defense.
I have no idea why. Probably something I screwed up. Just know that you're probably unlikely to have this same bug. That being said, it turns out I was being spared by the video game gods. I guess the Omnissiah.
The machine spirits are willing.
The writing, direction, and performance of the voice lines are bad.
Do you know about war safety?
Dormance is written here in blood.
One swig can't hurt one.
Did I just kill a man? Forgive me, Father.
Forgive me, Father.
Wait, how can I recognize this devil's speech?
It's no use.
Fallen aces.
I don't know if it's meant to be uncanny, disassociated, or just quirky, but they're uninspired, lack impact, and are poorly written. It is worse for the journalist than the priest.
Okay.
And you can turn them off in the settings if you want to. Overall, the voice acting is a very small portion of the soundscape. The weapon sounds, enemy callouts, ambient noises, and narration are still proficiently and excellently done, so I'd still confidently say that Forgive Me Father is a good sounding game. As for the overall presentation, although a few things are not so good, it is awesome, especially with a few tweaks. As you probably know though, for boomer shooters, gameplay is king. To start with Forgive Me Father's controls, we have WASD to move, aim with mouse, shoot with left mouse button, switch weapons with the number keys or scroll wheel, right mouse button for your light, and Q, E, R, and F for abilities unlocked throughout the game. The R key ability really messed me up because at first I would reflexively click on it to reload, which was stupid. There isn't any reloading. Any piece of ammo you pick up is auto-loaded into your weapon, so I had to unlearn that reflex. Say cheese. With those controls and mechanics, you shoot every abomination that crosses your desk in the face, or whatever, if it doesn't have a face. This could be a simple click fest, put your crosshair on the fish thing and all your problems go away, and it is, but there is an engaging amount of strategic depth that rewards an adaptive playstyle. You unlock new weapons and character abilities throughout the game, each with specific strengths and weaknesses. You have your knife, your revolver, your shotgun, your submachine gun, your Tommy gun, your spear gun, your Thundranomicon, and your energy booster. Each requires ammunition, except for the knife, and learning which weapon is best for the task at hand makes a huge difference. As I mentioned earlier, dealing damage with these weapons fills your madness meter, which provides charges for character abilities when full. The two characters each have a unique set of abilities. The priest, as a holy man, has religious-based abilities like his healing crucifix, stunning holy water, medallion rosary type thing providing temporary unlimited ammo, and the Necronomicon? I have no clue. That might be in First Maccabees or something, but it does provide temporary invulnerability. The reporter-journalist lady is not of the cloth, so she has some weirder abilities. The stunning fatal frame-like camera is not so strange, but there's the area of effect damaging voodoo doll, the unfiltered menthols that slow down time, and the quote-unquote herbs that summon a magic sword that heals you for damage dealt with it. Is this the reefer madness everyone was scared about in the 1970s?
Several weeks later, after smoking reefers, Marty's befogged brain hit on a clever way to open pop bottles.
Weird, but fun. On top of that, there is an experience-based level-up system. You can upgrade things like experience gained, maximum ammunition, character abilities, and get one of two upgrade paths for each weapon. Of these two paths, one is usually a standard improvement, while the other gets more exotic. With all these different toys to play with, you find yourself in different combinations of enemies and environments. Cramped hallways filled with tanky or fast enemies, dark areas with traps or enemy ambushes, hub levels that you circle back to where new enemies spawn, cathedral-sized arenas with a lot of ranged enemies, small platforming challenges with environmental hazards, more vertical rooms with teleporting or flying enemies, and many, many, many others. Versatility is hugely rewarded, and there's a lot of things to take into account, which brings us to the difficulty. Forgive Me Father isn't a great place of being tough. I mean, you'll probably die a lot, but since the mechanics are fair, you can strategize on what can be improved in the next go-around. This is true in the normal levels, and especially true with the boss battles, which are pretty good and have their own stages, grandeur, and challenge. So the gameplay, mechanics, and controls come together to create a well-designed, engaging experience, but like the presentation, some things are rough around the edges. Smaller issues include occasional enemy AI problems, some bugginess or pop-in, a few crashes, enemy line of sight and weapon range weirdness on large maps, a few objects having misleading hitboxes, and ammo drops for the exotic weapon upgrades being too scarce. All of that being said, my main critique is actually the pacing. I'm sure many of us have played a game and felt that, despite being fun, it seemed to just go on a little bit too long. I've certainly felt that way, but that likely has less to do with the actual length of the game and more to do with how effectively the length of the game is used. Forgive Me Father has 5 worlds, and in my opinion, hits a big lull in the second and beginning of the third world. In this section, there was still fun to be had, but often felt repetitive, more frustrating, or just less engaging. World 2, in my opinion, also has the weakest boss battle. Everything after this lull really picks up with way more interesting fights, environmental challenges, and enemy types, but I'd hate for the second world to push away players who would then never experience the epic Void Arena. This could very well get improved as the game is still getting updated. Hell, they could change a lot of things, but I felt that this was by far the weakest portion of the game. To sum up, Forgive Me Father's gameplay is hugely engaging, powerful and fun, but some polish and pacing adjustments would be great improvements. Okay, last thing to cover is the story, so if you want to skip spoilers, jump to the time on screen now. Okay, they're gone? Well, there isn't a ton to summarize here. While there is a lot of flavor lore that can be found throughout levels, the meat and potatoes of the plot is outlined in the few cutscenes. So you're looking for your cousin Lewis, only to discover that he's already been killed. The mayor of Pestisville turns out to be in charge of the cult that you've been fighting and that likely killed Lewis, so you take it upon yourself to get revenge. Your character is clearly starting to lose it, but fights their way to the mayor's cult meeting, lights the place up, and, pushed by forces they don't understand, kills the mayor himself. The same otherworldly force continues to pull your character deeper into this increasingly bizarre cosmic place, which is meant to be trippy and uncanny. Visually it's great, but in gameplay terms, this means they like to include a few horrible and unnecessary platforming sections every once in a while. You progress through this void until you come face to face with the source of the madness itself, Cthulhu. Come on, the Lovecraft shooter had to have you squared off against Cthulhu at the end, and it's a visually epic fight, albeit not the most exciting one. Upon defeating him, or her, I suppose we don't know, your character comes to their senses. They're shackled to a bed, surrounded by doctors, and the narrator says one of the most strangely written lines in the game.
You feel like after strong drugs.
Apparently, your character lost their mind, and they were the ones who killed Lewis and most other residents of Pestisville. It's one of those Silent Hill 3 type twists where the monsters that you kill throughout the game are recontextualized to have been innocent people, and your character turns out to be the monster.
Monsters? They look like monsters to you?
To me, this story isn't very unique and is just okay, but it doesn't get much screen time and is not really the draw of games like this, so it's serviceable to frame the fish people shooting. I give the story an and that fits the bill. Okay, welcome back to our spoiler avoiders. I missed you. So despite the game's faults, should you play Forgive Me Father? Yes, especially if you can buy it on sale. There are issues with the presentation, gameplay, and pacing, but if you fiddle with the graphical settings, push through World 2, and don't mind a challenge, this game kicks ass. I'm not really the biggest into boomer shooters, but I really appreciated the 90s-inspired gameplay with an intriguing and unique, modern art style. Average or unengaging moments are definitely there, but the high moments overshadow them for me. I won't spoil it here, but I love the way the fourth boss spawns in. You should play it just for that. Or the big ugly fish fight. No, the Void Arena. The Bioshock 2 section? I don't know, but it's good. There's also Endless Mode, a level selector, and New Game Plus, which unlocks after beating the game, so you have a few other options, but no multiplayer though. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll tweet out a hint for the next game 2 days before I post the next video, and I'd love to consider a request for a game to cover in a video if you're the one who guesses right. I'll see you in 2 weeks with the next review. Have a good one, everyone.
Shop smart. Shop S-Mart.